Yeah, the roadmap to how you got to Broadway.
Because I think sometimes kids make up in their mind what this exact picture is, and I would hazard to guess that you guys all probably got there on very different paths. So it'd be kind of cool to hear the different paths.
Sure. I'm sure you got there through your middle school teachers.
Yes.
Yes, actually.
Actually,
Just
real
some
talk,
positive
though.
things about your middle school.
Forget high school, middle.
Real talk. No, that's very real. Well, I'll go. I mean, I started dancing at a very young age. And then from there, I sort of started to figure out in basically middle school, or just 5th grade into middle school, that I could sing too, and how to put that together. And it really was middle school. We joke, but like it really was middle school where I sort of like made the decision like that this was something that I was going to pursue, which is a pretty early age, but I just sort of loved it. And I think like I was lucky enough I had a choir program as well, and and sort of went on from there and went to high school and continued all of that, continued dancing, continued singing in choir, and then also participating in our theater program. And from then I just sort of was like, okay, I'm for sure doing this. So I just started to figure out and learn all I could about what it meant to go to college for musical theater. I ended up going to boarding school my senior year of high school, just studying acting, which sort of helped me figure out, at the time, I wasn't sure how to get into a musical theater school, so that sort of helped me figure out that path. And I ended up going to school at Emerson College in Boston, graduating with a BFA in musical theater. And so that's sort of like the abridged like version, but it really did all start when I was about this age, 11, 12, where I sort of had already made up my mind that this was something that I was interested in and going to continue on studying. So it really is an important time. And of course, this is a weird time to not be, obviously you don't get to do your show, which is a huge bummer, but I think it's amazing that we're all here today and gathering, and this show, Frozen, is still bringing us all together to talk about it, and that's a really cool thing.
That is cool. Thank you so much. Who wants to talk next?
Jake, you were.
Yep, cool, yeah. So I didn't start doing theater until I was like 13 or 14. I was like gung-ho, gonna go to a state college for soccer, and got injured, and my mom had always made me take a choir class because I was like the annoying kid in the back seat singing along to the radio.
Woohoo, we love your mom.
Yeah, no, I do too, because that fostered like this just insane love for music and for singing and for the arts in general. And then I got into high school and just sort of found musical theater through a couple different avenues. Going into college, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So, don't get intimidated when you hear our stories of like, I've always wanted to do this and I've always known what blah, 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 blah. I'm here to tell you it is okay if you have no idea. I think I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. If I wanted to try to go be a recording artist or a movie star or whatever, I just knew that I wanted to be in the arts. And then somebody was like, you can major in musical theater and do sort of like all facets of performing. I was like, you mean I don't have to take math? I'm sold, let's do it. And so I auditioned for 3 schools. I had no idea what I was doing. I was lucky enough to get into Elon for musical theater. It's a little school in North Carolina. And then right at the end of my senior year of college, a spot in the ensemble of Frozen covering the role of Hans opened up. And I was lucky enough to know some agents and to know some really cool people who believed in me and got me the audition. And I was able to come in and show them what I got. And then I graduated from college and moved to New York, and in 48 hours was in rehearsal for Frozen the musical. It was
Crazy.
super
Wow.
crazy.
God. Oh my God.
And I was lucky enough to get to rehearse with Kajay the whole time. So we became buddies over that. And then I met all of these wonderful people.
Wow, that's a story. Holy moly.
I sort of stopped at college, but we'll go back.
Well,
Another
they
time.
said Journey
No,
to Broadway.
I messed up. No, I didn't pay attention to the rules. Okay.
Keely, you want to tell us your story?
Sure. Okay, so actually, Allie and I are pretty similar in our journeys. We actually grew up together. I've known her since I was 8 years old, and we went to the same dance studio and the same high school. So we did a lot of theater together growing up and dancing. So I started dance first when I was maybe 5, and I was strictly dance until high school when I auditioned for my first musical, which was West Side Story. And then I was like, oh wait, I actually enjoy doing all three, not just dancing, singing, and acting. So then I, like most of these folks here, went to Penn State for musical theater, and I just continued that path. But I think it's always been in my family, singing and acting and performing. But I was the only one of my siblings who actually pursued it, and it takes a lot of work and training, but we made it here somehow. So keep dreaming and keep working hard. He's a, because we're pretty similar, but he's a, you could talk.
So I also started dance when I was around 5, and I was, same dance studio as Keely. And a little bit, I started getting into musical theater though when I was in like middle school. My mom was a dancer, and she was like super enthusiastic about just being kind of like part of my journey. So I started doing this this kids singing group in New York City called, we were the Johnny Mercer Kids, and we would perform at like really cool venues around the city. So I really had the bug then. And yeah, then we went to Performing Arts High School with Keely, and then also went to Penn State for musical theater with Keely.
Is this a plug for Penn State? I think
No. Go wherever your heart's desire. But so Aladdin was always kind of a show that I'd always wanted to be in. One of my favorite Disney movies ever from growing up, and it actually took me 3 auditions to get into the show. So 3 times that I had been called in, gotten to the end of the callback process, and by the last time I was like, okay, this is it. Like, if I don't get it this time, maybe I need to just kind of like move on from this dream of Aladdin, right? And then that was the time that I booked it. So if I can say anything, something that keeps me going is if you know your why, you can do any how. Kind of a wonky phrase, but if you know the reason why you're doing something, you're gonna get there, you know? So.
I like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it my turn?
It's your turn.
Okay. I'm Kajay again, and I actually started performing when I was super young. I'm really lucky because I have 2 really supportive parents in terms of the arts. My dad's a musician, and my mom is actually a dance educator. Teachers are important. They're the best. And I actually did my first professional show when I was 10. I'm lucky enough that Frozen's my second Disney show. I opened the first national tour of The Lion King as young Nala, and I did that for 2 contracts, so equivalent to like 14 months.
And from there, I did continue to perform in middle school and high school, but I ended up going to college for painting and drawing, just because, like, personally, I needed a break from this thing that I'd been doing, like, since I was so little. But I still wanted to be involved in the arts. And my journey did bring me back to dance my senior year of college, which is really late to decide that you actually want to be a professional dancer or like Broadway performer. But I like mentioning that because kind of no matter where your journey takes you, if you end up having a dream, I think it's always worthwhile to pursue it and not like say, oh, well, you know, I haven't been doing this since I was little, or, you know, whatever. But yeah, I did eventually come back to performing, and I've danced in New York for the Nick City Dancers. I've danced in 4 operas at the Met Opera, which is like an unbelievable experience to dance on that stage. It's like one of the most amazing things, honestly, that ever happened to me. And then Frozen is my Broadway debut. And I was actually in auditions for the national tour of Frozen that opened this past fall. Yeah, this past fall. And I did make it to the end, but I didn't end up booking that. And about a month or so later, they contacted me to hire me as a replacement in the Broadway show, which, you know, was a total dream. And I feel like Jake David Smith has heard the story 1,000 times because we've done so many talkbacks together. But basically, I was on vacation in Cuba, a place where like you can't really easily communicate to the US. And I got the job offer while I was there, but I just had to send them, I had to like sing for them still. So I was like, oh, I'll send a video. And I sent like this crazy video from Cuba. Like my hair was braided, like it was so wild. And I booked it. So anything can happen. It's all about hard work and perseverance, truly.
Wow. So there's no like exact path, which is so cool, which I love that all of my performers are hearing, because everybody comes from different backgrounds and different upbringings and different places in the world. And I just love that you guys are able to share with them that it doesn't matter where they start as long as they keep that dream in their heart. And it's so exciting. So I'm wondering, I'm gonna see if I can look and see if there's any questions that they have for you. If you guys have another few minutes, I know we're not gonna keep you very long. And we are so grateful to you that you are here, but I'm just wondering if they have any questions. How do I do this? Okay, oh, this was before. Okay. You guys, all right, so do you guys have any specific questions for any of them that you want to ask them? They're all sitting here in awe, I think. Yeah, it just means just type it in. Just chat it to me. Miss McDonald, do you have a question? I thought you had.
Yeah, I'm always wondering what kind of audition song do you choose when you're going to audition for a part or a show? Because, you know, they don't audition with a song from the show. So how do you find a song? Is it similar? You know, how do you do that? Or what's in your portfolio that you have?
Well, they sort of, you know, you need to have those core few songs that you do know that you can nail. You know, I have a pop song that is my favorite one to sing. I have, you know, a more legit soprano song. I have a more belty song. So I do have those sort of staples in my wheelhouse. But I feel like it's really important, you know, if I am not given the material. Luckily for Frozen, I was given the material for Anna, so I did know going in that that was what I needed to prepare. Was I sang Forever, I think like 10 different times at 10 a.m. in the morning. But I think for me, it's important to find a song that A, suits the show. So if I'm going in for a 70s, 60s, 70s pop show, something of that era, but also like that I'm actually going to enjoy in the room, not something that I think that the person behind the table or my teacher is going to enjoy, something that I am going to enjoy, because that will ultimately show my personality, which is to me more important than trying to please X, Y, and Z. You know, you obviously need to take into account like what kind of show is it? where does the show take place, those types of things. But ultimately what's going to be the best fit is the one that you're going to have the most fun, because at the end of the day you have, you know, a minute to sort of show someone your personality. And if all goes wrong and you don't get the job or you don't get the part, that's totally okay. At least for, you know, a minute and a half, you got to be like, hey, this is me, and I had a great time singing this song for you. So something that we're still working on though too, you know, it's
yeah. I mean, I think each of us probably has a story about going into an audition room with a song and feeling like they nailed it, and then leaving the room without the job, but those people behind the table remember like your energy and how you did, and then when you go in for a different project for them, you know, they're totally sold on you, or in some cases they're asking for you. The situation that I found myself in with Frozen was entirely because of a different audition process for a different show with a different style of music, but someone behind that table remembered, and you know, that's how that goes. As a general rule of thumb, I like to think about who composed or wrote the song, you know, or the musical, or the, you know, the songs in the musical that you're auditioning for, and then try to find maybe a song in the style of that composer or another song that that composer has written. That's always a good way to find sort of the same musical style as the show you're auditioning for. My advice.
Interesting, yeah.
Great.
Oh, wait, I just wanted to say something super quick. As someone who is a dancer first, I feel like once I got that the people behind the table wanted to see me, A, tell a story, B, have fun, and C, like just see my personality as a whole, that's when I started booking jobs. When I was going in there terrified, like of trying to show off my voice, like that wasn't working for me. And I think what's so great about theater, unless you're specifically going in for a role that is very clearly like a vocal gymnastics kind of role, I would put those things like in the forefront of your mind when you're auditioning.
I love that you use telling a story. I feel like I say that all the time. And your body, in your face, in your mind, everything that you're doing is about telling a story. So thank you for saying that and reiterating that. I bet they've heard me say that before, so I appreciate that. Okay, so I have a couple of questions, if you will, let me see. I have a question from Jasmine that says, do you have to go to college for theater to be on Broadway?
Absolutely not.
Oh no. I was like painting and drawing for 4 years. I didn't even think about singing, dancing, or acting once until my senior year of college, and I took my mom to see Alvin Ailey, and I was reminded of how much I loved performing on the stage. And I did move to New York after that, and I, you know, busted my butt in classes, working with as many different types of teachers as possible to like kind of play a little bit of catch up. But I feel like it's totally possible.
I also feel like I have a lot of friends that, you know, even though they didn't go to college, like maybe they moved straight from high school to New York. Like even now, even though I did go to college, we are all still taking class, and we are all still trying to gain more tools, because the more tools you have and the sharper they are, like I used to be a big dancer, and if I go to dance class, that's me making sure that those tools are still sharp, so that even though I may not be using that as much in this particular show, there may be a show down the line that I need to call on those skills. So it's like, you know, we're always still learning. So whether that means you need the structure of a 4-year college or not, there is always this constant learning, constant growing, staying in class, staying in touch with teachers, that type of thing.
Awesome, thank you. I have a question from Mia Martinez. She wants to know if you guys like opening night or closing night best.
Opening night.
No, closing night. You know what? You know, they're thinking like we have shows that are, you know, 1 weekend long.
Oh my gosh, I used to cry so hard in middle school. I was devastated when it ended. But it's like, it's because you have the best time ever, right? I totally get that.
Yeah, I would be like in mourning after the musical. Yeah. It's just like a weekend of shows, but Oh, definitely opening night is the best. It's too sad and I never wanted to close.
So a lot of the kids are asking questions about auditions. So I'm going to try and kind of put it into one question. Can someone just sort of describe the audition process? I think they don't know, like, is it always the same? Do you always go in and sing first and then dance, or vice versa? Do you have to have a monologue prepared? Like, how does that whole audition thing happen?
It's pretty much subjective to what the show calls for. So if it's a heavy dance show, maybe you start with a dance combination and you learn that, and then you'll go to the singing call after. Or if it's a heavy singing show, maybe you start with singing. It also depends on the role that you're specifically going in for. I'm a dancer. I feel like I'm always at the dance call first, but there's like 30 people in a room, and then they make a cut, and we dance some more, they make another cut, then we sing, and then you find out. But if I'm going in for a specific role for a show, I might come in with a song that they've asked me from the show. They may ask me to sing my own song from my book, like we were speaking of earlier. They may ask for sides, which is not a monologue, but it's just part of the script that you'll read with somebody else in the room. So you're showing your acting skills there, you're showing your singing skills, and then maybe you'll dance. So it depends on what show it is, and what specifically they need and what skills they need and what kind of role it is, and if you're right for the role. There's just so many factors that go into it. But
it's kind of like when you go to auditions, like you have to be ready for anything, right? Like my final audition for Frozen, I was in my little Anna outfit that I had, put together for myself, and I was singing, and it was actually on a stage, which they haven't done in a very long time, but they did for Frozen. And I didn't have anything else with me. And they said, hey, can you stay and dance again by myself on the stage? I didn't have shorts on. I was wearing like this little dress and tights, and luckily I made it work, but it was a dancer combo, like with, all sorts of things. And I just was like, well, this is what it is. But, I should have, in hindsight, I should have had my stuff with me, because you just never know what they're going to ask you to do. And you just sort of have to be ready. And of course, like specifically for a show, they may give you the material, but like, I booked my first Broadway show from an open call, and I sang 8 bars, which is like 20 seconds of a song that I had decided was correct for Kinky Boots. And thank goodness it worked. But, and that day I had my bag with me with my shoes, my book, my, a different outfit just in case, because you just have to be ready for sort of anything in that sort of scenario.
I just saw a question about auditioning that was like, if you're a dancer, do you have to do a vocal audition? And almost always, yes, in musical theater. I think there was a time in theater where people were just actors. They were the singers, they were the dancers. But now most shows today call for the ability to do all of those things. Yeah.
That's good to know. You have to be willing to do all of it. Awesome.
Can I just ask a question quickly?
Sure.
Belting. When did you start belting?
Okay. I have to say something about this.
Okay.
Oh,
please.
good. Everybody listen.
So like in dance, right? They say ballet is the fundamental of dance. I don't know. Do you agree with me, Kajay and Julie and Allie? So
Definitely.
like, when I started dancing, they were like, well, you have to take ballet. You can't just take tap. You sort of have to be well-rounded in that. So the same thing I feel, and there are different stances on this, but I feel for belting, it's the same thing. So starting out in choir, learning your music theory, starting out singing maybe a more legit, more head voicey type, learning how to project, learning how to breathe first, right? Because we hear so many people that just go for the belt, and what's happening is that it's actually the muscles in your throat, and that those aren't trained yet enough to support that type of sound. So
right. It's like if you were just to plop into a split and had never touched your toes.
Exactly. So for me, like, I primarily, and especially the way that Broadway has gone in the last 10 years or so, it is a lot more pop music, a lot more belt heavy in that sense, especially in the 2 Broadway shows that I have done. But in my voice lessons, I am still working on my legit voice. I'm vocalizing all the way up, all the way down. I'm warming up. I'm making sure that I'm not just like whipping out, oh, I dance with somebody, like out of the, blue, because I might hurt myself. Because a belt sound, we think is super forward and super loud, right? But a lot of times we don't actually understand where that's coming from. So I feel very strongly that it's important to work on technique first, choir first, all of that before, working, on a song, a musical theater song that is pre-1950, in terms of where it happened in the canon of musical theater, and then easing into a belt later on. And it's hard because you want to do that right away, but unfortunately it's a marathon, not a sprint. That's
Yeah.
So,
And like,
also,
if you start ballet, you can't just throw on point shoes.
right.
Thank
Exactly.
you. Thank you.
I
Okay.
think it's really, really
Good
important
answer.
to remember too that, especially at a young age, when you listen to musical theater songs, you think, oh my God, I want to sound like that. Like, you have to remember that the original soundtrack of a Broadway musical these days is just as mixed, just as produced, just as enhanced as a regular pop song on the radio. So live, that is not what we sound like. If you go listen to the Frozen cast album,
We sound pretty good.
we sound, look, I mean, they sound amazing, but it doesn't sound like that every single show because we're humans. We're stuffy one day, it sounds a little different. You can't put that kind of pressure on yourself and expect at a young age to sound exactly like, the next to normal Broadway cast album, because like odds are even some of those people don't sound like that every single day. So it's really important to remember that a belt is a feeling. It's not a sound that you hear and replicate. So
I like
yeah.
points.
that.
Thank you.
I will also speak on just like one more thing to that, and the importance of warming up. I mean, I can't even tell you how important it is to like my process, for instance. Warming up your body is just as important to singing as warming up your voice. So I do a good body warm up, a good vocal warm up, and I'm warming up like 70-30, like 70% is like of my personal warm up is like my whole range, top range, legit stuff. And then the other 30% would be like the mixing and the belting, because that's my foundation. And I was doing this show one time, and this awesome vocal coach who coaches like pop singers and rock stars and like the Eden Espinosa, of Broadway. If you know who she is, she did like Brooklyn and Wicked and Rent. And you can Google this guy. His name is Kurt Robinson, and he was doing this workshop with me, and he heard me. I was about to do some like belty song, and I was just doing a few sirens, and I was like, great, I feel good, I can do it. And he stopped me one day, and he was like, you can't just do that and think it's gonna be sustainable. And that moment kind of changed everything for me. And once I realized what I actually had to do to healthily produce the sounds I wanted to all the time, my range increased. My voice started sounding better. And it's amazing what a great warm up and really taking care of your body and your instrument can do for you. No more preaching. I won't preach
No,
today.
that was
I love
good.
that.
Those are such great advice, and thank you for that.
Thank you. There's a couple more questions about dance and about like what type of dance you recommend to become stronger. Would you recommend like a variety? I mean, I heard a lot about ballet for sure to start off with as a foundation. Do you guys have any other thoughts on what like musical theater, dance? Is there like
Well,
specific
sure.
or something?
I studied all different styles of dance. I think musical theater is it's based on style. So it's not like geared toward a specific genre of dance. So not like all of Frozen, I wouldn't say it's jazz dance. It's musical theater. So it's based in acting and purpose and telling a story, and that informs the style of dance. So just having any and all types of dance under your belt make you a better performer stylistically, and you understand how to use your body and tell a story, which I think is more important than just, which I started as a competition dancer, like just doing flat turns. But that's not not really what musical theater is about. It's more about storytelling. So all styles of dance, I think.
Awesome. I have a question. I'm the theater teacher primarily, so I have a question about I think the hardest thing that I have with working with middle school kids is convincing them that their face and their body tells so much of the story, and that they could have the most perfect movement or technique, but if they can't tell the story with their face, then they're not telling the story. So do you have anything that you can tell them that will help me help them with telling the story with their body and their face?
Well, I think it's funny because like I teach a lot of middle school age as well in the city. And what I find is that we're like, and I do it too as an adult, we're so worried about being silly or looking silly or dumb or, doing it wrong or doing it, and so there's a lot of judgment that we all put on ourselves. I still put on myself. And I find in those moments when I'm able to sort of throw that judgment away and like not worry about what that person over there is thinking about what I'm doing, right? Like in class or something, I'm more able to sort of tap into the story and say, okay, no, really, what is this character experiencing? How can I put myself in that scenario? But I think like a lot of the times, like the judgment can kind of overpower the storytelling. So I think like the sooner that we can throw away, like, I'm worried about looking silly or I'm worried about sounding silly. When we do vocal warm-ups, like it's all very weird sounds, like, all over our face and things like that. And the sooner you can like not worry about that and just kind of go for it, I think the easier all of that comes. Sort of a roundabout thing, but just a thought I had.
Yes, getting rid of inhibitions is a big step for middle schoolers for sure. So
Yeah.
the sooner the better, guys, is what
Right.
I'm saying.
Truly.
Absolutely.
It only holds you back, really. I mean,
I know that's always like a question I get for middle schoolers. If there's one thing I could go back and change, if I could do, I would fix, it would be letting go of the fear of judgment or looking silly. Just letting go of that fear, because then you grow up to be such a confident adult. And while some of us are still struggling with feeling that judgment, when you could just let it go because no one really cares,
I also saw a question about, I'm not sure that I want to do theater for a profession, or, I'm sort of figuring it out. First of all, there are so many different facets of theater beyond performing that help to make a show happen. So that's like important to note, A. But B, like in your classes, in your theater classes, in your choir classes, like these are all skills, whether you want to become a performer or not, that truly are going to help you in the real world. Like my brother is graduating high school right now, and he wants to go on to be a veterinarian. But he has participated in choir and theater from middle school up until this point. Now, he does not think that he will continue to study it, but I had a conversation with him where he was like, I truly think it has made me a better communicator, a better listener. It has helped me convey a story. So I've had to do presentations and I've been able to stand up and say, here's the story that I'm trying to convey to you. And he said those weren't skills that I had before participating in theater and choir. So there is something to learn from all of this, whether you go on to perform or not. These classes are super important, like Keely said, to make you the most confident version of you to go on and do whatever it is you're going to do.
Wow. That was good.
That was good.
That was good.
No, but seriously, I mean, like, I have aspiration. I want to teach one day too. Like, that's something that's in the back of my mind at some point that I know I want to accomplish. I don't know when that will happen, but you know, like,
You can come teach at our school anytime you like.
perfect.
Doors are open.
But you know, like, it's these are skills that are important beyond just being on Broadway. So.
You know, what about opening your mouth when you go to sing? Because we have a lot of problem with that, don't we? When you guys are on Broadway, which is so cool, are you opening your mouth and singing?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
And doesn't it make your sound bigger, you know?
Yeah. I think with the judgment thing, we grow up learning tension, you know, whether we are aware of it or not at the time, we have tension, right? Like I woke up this morning and I had super crazy jaw tension. I've been having like really weird quarantine dreams, like, you know, so I think like all of that, especially in middle school, it's tension. It's jaw, it's tongue, it's neck tension. It's maybe your tummy hurts and it's bothering your voice. Like, and what Allie said, it's like, it is using that warm up to sort of free your muscles in order to communicate. Beyond literally just to open your mouth and act as well.
And it ties into telling the story with your face as well when you're on stage. If you're singing or you're dancing, like, you know, fake it till you make it. And we hear that all the time. We live by that. We breathe by that. Like, that is, you know, half the time you can trick people into thinking that you are executing the choreography perfectly just by acting, and they don't even look at your feet. I can't even tell you how many dance calls I have attended, and I have massively forgotten or messed up the choreography, but I kept acting and no one noticed. Like, you know, so that's another thing to tie into is like, do not be afraid to go all the way, send it with your facial expressions.
But your sound also, like, your sound changes the way that, like, how much you open your mouth. Like, your sound completely changes. Right? Like, there's a difference between me talking to you guys like this because I'm not moving my jaw and opening my mouth and communicating with you. So that's the same thing for singing. You know, there's a lot of big vocals in Frozen. If I don't open my mouth, I'm just going to hurt myself, you know, in the process. It's all sort of connected.
And I feel like when I was your age, going back to the feeling of fear, I had a voice teacher who I would never sing to the end like of a phrase because I was scared of sounding bad. And it's just so detrimental to what you can do and what you can access in your voice. Like, I would close it off before I even could truly open my voice to hear what it was. So I was scared of sounding bad, which I think you should let go. It just makes you sound worse, really. So leading with letting go of fear and being scared of what your voice might sound like if it sounds bad, whatever. I think opening your voice and letting go of that tension, letting go of that fear is huge. I wish I learned that when I was younger.
I also feel like singing, I mean, it's like with anything, like the more you do it, the easier it becomes, just because, like, regardless of if you're actually getting better, which of course you would be, you're telling your brain that this is okay to do. Like, I'm calm when I do this. And just even by being in Frozen, which is the first time in my adult life that I am singing like every day for an extended period of time. I mean, my voice has completely changed. And that's also with the help of my voice teacher, who, by the way, always says that he wants me to fit an iPad this way in my mouth when I'm singing, because I like to sing like this, and he's like, you need so I always think of like an iPad being in there.
Well, I think that's interesting because, you know, I have a lot of people that say something about my choir. Well, why aren't they smiling? And I said, well, because I want this sound, and if they smile, we're going, you know, east to west. So how do you must have to get that sound first, because when you're on stage, you seem to be smiling all the time, and yet you don't sound twangy or, you know, babyish or anything. So is it your technique was secure and then you just let your everything show, but it's there?
Yes.
You know, altering it.
Yes. I mean, if I were in a huge belt show, like I was in Kinky Boots and the vocal parts were extremely high belting, and actually smiling not only A, was correct for the scene, but B, helped me with my sounds to get it more in my nasal cavity and more and brighter. But yeah, your technique is there. And so then you're able to sort of like maneuver your mouth. Like I might be smiling, but my soft palate is like lifted for Frozen.
Yeah.
So it's almost like
way
it's
up there.
visualizing like what is going on inside of your mouth, right? And then
Right.
pairing that with the story you're trying to tell.
Also, I think it's important to note that with everything that you're doing in theater, and this relates to like your face being expressive, or your dancing being what the choreographer wants, or your singing. You have to learn all of the proper technique, and then you can throw it away, right? So you have to know exactly what the correct way to do something is, and then you can tailor it to the needs of the show, or release your inhibitions and just kind of like, like belt it out or whatever. But you can't do that you can't safely and successfully do that for a long time without having all of the technique first, really good foundation.
Right. That's good. Because you do see these stars, they're not good singers, but man, can they pull off a song? And, it's great, isn't it? And they're smiling, especially men, or I don't know, there's a lot of them that are just more comedic, and you don't mind the voice.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes with storytelling. That's why it sort
Yeah.
of all ties together, I've totally biffed a dance audition before, like totally forgot what I was doing when I was auditioning, and could not remember the choreography. And sometimes that has gotten me the job because I'm still telling a story up here, regardless that, I missed that step just then, let me get back on when I can.
Oh, so you mean don't show it in your face if you mess up?
Correct.
Don't grab at your throat if you have a voice crack. Don't.
Correct.
You
Correct.
hear that, Mia?
Correct. Yes.
Good. Yeah. Cool.
I can't tell you the amount of times I have felt like I ruined a show with a voice crack and gone out to the audience to hear from everybody how lovely they thought the show sounded, and they had no idea that I had ever cracked, or that, you go backstage and you're putzing around and everybody's like, what is wrong? And you're like, well, I voice cracked. And they're like, I did not hear it. So you have to remember that the more you acknowledge the mistake, the more everybody else is going to hear it. If you act like nothing happened, no one is going to know anything happened.
It's also like the beauty of live theater too. Like I've gone up to do an entire monologue in Kinky Boots in a spotlight and completely gone up on and I had been in the show for 2 years and I couldn't remember anything. And now it's like one of my most favorite moments on stage. Like in the moment it was like, but after that I was like, man, I kept going. That was so funny. That was live theater at its finest. And those things happen. And there's no sense in like dwelling on the mistakes, because sometimes they end up being like amazing stories later on. And I tell that story all the time.
Very cool. There's a couple of questions here about, have you ever met anyone who is not kind or is rude or had any hate like throughout can you, we worked really hard at our school building a family that supports each other and so forth, but we're still middle schoolers. And sometimes, we can not be the kindest to each other, although I have to say this group is not typically that way. But just to continue with that, because we have a lot of them moving into high school, they're going to be coming into contact with a lot of different people. Do you have anything that you can share with them about basically choosing kindness?
Of course. The Broadway community, I have to say, is one of the most supportive communities, and it's a very small community. So if you are not a nice person, that word gets around and you have a reputation. And also at the end of the day, we just want to go to work and enjoy the people we work with. We don't want to be put down. We don't want to feel bad. We don't want to be insecure. We want to support and lift each other up, tell a story, and leave the audience feeling uplifted. it's not a place for negativity. It's really just a place for support. And yeah, if you have a bad rep, you don't belong in this business. If you're a mean person, you don't really belong in our community.
And the thing is like, so many people are talented that, like, why would people choose to hire people who seem to not want to be kind or not want to just be a giver? We're really lucky at Frozen because I think we have such an amazing, strong connection with everyone there. Like, I know the women's ensemble dressing room where I sit next to Keely, where I used to sit next to Lauren. I mean, like, I'm just going to work and having a party almost every single day. And like, that's so incredible. And same from when I was in The Lion King, like that was more than 15 years ago. And we had a Zoom party last night. Like, those people who I met who were adults when I was 10 shaped who I am today. And they showed me to be kind, to be a giver, like I said. And I think when you lead with that, like, people are just going to like want to be around you all the time, professionally and socially.
The kinder you are, the more people will want to work with you in the future. Like, over half the jobs that I have gotten in New York is because somebody said, oh, you should use Lauren. She's a hard worker, she's quick, and she is just the best to be around, or something like that. I mean, I'm putting
You are the
it in your mouth, but what I'm saying
Which is all true.
But what I'm saying is like, I literally would not have gotten those jobs. And like, they check up too. They ask people that you've worked with before. They look at my resume and they say, she was in Kinky Boots. Let's go ask Stephen Aramis or whoever, how did she do? Was she kind to work with? Was she a hard worker? And those things have stayed with me. And now I'm working with the exact same music team that I worked with on Kinky Boots in Frozen. So there is a correlation, and it really does matter. I cannot tell you how much it does not being kind in middle school or high school will get you absolutely nowhere, whether you are in theater or not.
And speaking specifically to being in middle school or high school, we're talking a lot about projecting kindness. And, you know, that's a hard time when people sometimes aren't kind to you. And speaking specifically to that, like, you know, I grew up getting bullied with the best of them, eating lunch alone, all the nicknames, all the horrible things to be called. You know, I've been there. It's awful, but I can totally speak to the moment you start living your truth, and the moment you live for you and for nobody else, is where you find your people, where you find your family, and you find your home. Because when you are leading with light and when you are leading with love, you attract the kind of other people that you want to be around in the first place. You know, you attract the kind of people who are going to be your friends and who are going to be lifelong friends. So let the naysayers, you know, float by, and you keep living your truth. And eventually the people that you come to consider to be your family will find you, because you are doing stuff that attracts them to you.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I love that too.
It's a really great place to end, because I realize how late it is now for you guys, and I know that your commitment to us was about a half an hour, and now we've kept you longer than that, so I am so sorry. But you had such great things to say, and
such great things.
And oh my gosh, it means so much to us that you would take the time to speak with us. So really, really, really appreciate it. So I cannot thank you enough, and I know that the kids would love to be able to thank you. So if you guys want to unmute real quick and say thanks, you can do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is so cool.
It is cool.
And a lot of us are on social media.
Oh my God, I tell you.
Want to reach out and ask other questions.
Oh, that's fantastic.
In quarantine, so I'm pretty available to answer questions if you have them. We're here for you guys. It's really an honor to talk to and communicate with students. I wish I had this when I was your age. So I'm sorry your show is canceled.
Yes.
That's awful.
but no, you're not alone. You know, we're all sort of dealing with that, and we're missing our show too. And I'm glad that we could just at least come together today and chat for a bit.
I love that. Somehow through being apart, it's still bringing people together. You know, I love that. So, all right. Well, for my students, we're going to have to set up another Zoom because I know a lot of the 8th graders have a high school meeting right now, and we have some things that we still need to share with you guys. So I'm going to send another Zoom, but to the cast of Frozen and Aladdin, thank you so, so much for being here with us. Oh my gosh.
Of course.
You're welcome.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Bye.